Coming up, Ed Solomon joins Illeana in just a minute.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
And now, it's the I Blame Dennis Hopper podcast, starring Illeana Douglas. Eavesdrop with Illeana as she interviews Hollywood's most prominent players about filmmaking, acting, and what really happens on the set of your favorite flicks and TV shows.
Hi, everyone. It's Illeana Douglas. Welcome to the I Blame Dennis Hopper podcast. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Tamara Bird.
Hi, everybody.
And very excited about the show today. In our, we are rounding out our salute to writers.
Yes.
I love saluting writers, literally. And, they don't get much, cred. They
sometimes, they sometimes do. Actors,
it's not like somebody goes, that's a well-written movie.
Actors appreciate writers.
Yes, I get it, but some of
and
these
are vociferous about it.
But
like
some of these films, that I just watched the Florida Project last night.
Yeah.
We're going to have them on as guests.
Right, Chris Burka.
Yes,
Burka?
coming up in the. I'll let you.
Burgick.
Yes.
I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Berg.
He'll tell us when he's on the show.
Yeah.
But again, it's you would think that a movie like The Florida Project is improv, and it's not. It's scripted.
See?
And so it's dealing with that, and with some people that did improv, some people that were professionals, not professionals. Fascinating story actually behind the making of The Florida Project. It was really exciting to talk to him about it.
Don't tell it now.
Well, I'm not gonna. He'll be on here talking about it.
Well, and speaking, we just are going to have Michael McKean coming up soon on the show.
Yes,
right?
Michael McKean.
Speaking of improv.
Yes.
And writing.
Mm-hmm. And so we had, and then we just missed. I keep plugging him, Stephen Rogers, who wrote I, Tonya, another great script.
Right.
I mean, it's interesting. Allison Janney's winning all these awards, but. You don't win awards without a good script.
That's right.
So, and that's an interesting, intricate script too, that goes back and forth in
I, Tonya?
time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So all these different, different types of scripts and genres. I love learning how to, learning how to write. I often say, like, if that, I think that would have been my favorite, my go-to profession is being a writer, like J.D. Salinger.
Really?
Yeah, would have just,
like a novelist. Do you mean, or any kind of writing?
I like the idea just of writing every day. I find it to be really peaceful. There was an interesting movie that totally went by the wayside called Rebel in the Rye about J.D. Salinger.
Right. Someone was just talking to us about it.
And
recently. I can't remember.
Yeah, but and I feel bad. The director's Danny Strong, producer Bruce Cohen.
Oh, Danny Strong, right?
And I felt bad because again, you got to look for these movies, but very, very interesting about the process of J.D. Salinger writing Catcher in the Rye. And at one point, his teacher, played by Kevin Spacey in the film, says, you have to be able to. Would you want to write even if you never got published? And that line really stuck with me.
Yeah. Because
I know that the process of writing the book, I was so happy and fulfilled. It felt like being, I don't know, just a culmination of something. And it felt very gratifying, even if I, never wrote another book, which is not going to happen.
You are writing another book.
But I thought, you know what? I'm like I felt a real, as if I'd really achieved something by writing a book. And I don't know why I felt that way more than writing, being a part of a film or a web series or all the other accolades I've
many accomplishments that you have. I mean, I find that really interesting because I also am a creative person. I do a lot of, I make things, but I am super attached to the result. I am not like you are in like loving the process.
Yes, you gotta love the process.
For me, it's all about like, when is this dress going to be done so I can wear it? When is this cake going to be done so I can eat it? When is this piece of jewelry going to be done so I can wear it, kind of thing. And it's not that I don't enjoy the process, and I know see, I envy someone like you and the other people who I think are probably on a better path than I am.
Right.
who are about, going through the process and appreciating it and experiencing it. I get way too attached to the result, and I think it's terrible. Really, honestly.
Yeah. Well, unless the result is fantastic.
Well, yeah, it's just not. It's not as healthy, I think, for one's psyche, to go at it the way I do. I think it's much more healthy to do it the way you do, to just like be in it, and I think it's, and also I think the process of creativity is probably easier and maybe kinder to people who are in it for the process. And maybe I'm just criticizing myself too much, but because obviously I do it because I like it. But but I do you don't find yourself coming to the I've got to get to page 300 or X, Y, and Z? Do you put those kind
I
of
find the
pressures on
opposite
yourself?
thing. There was a famous like showbiz story about Al Pacino working on this film for 25 years or something, tinkering with it,
Right.
screening it for people, bringing it back, redo. And I feel that way with something that I'm working on now, like this inability to let it go. I'm always like, hi, let me go back to that
a little
scene.
bit better.
And sometimes I have to, you have to worry about, you could undermine something that actually worked. But I think about, I'll see an idea or be inspired by something and I go back and what I'm always trying to do, I guess, is just tell a good story and make it as believable as possible.
Do you keep older drafts?
I do, and I do go back sometimes and check it. But luckily for me, I have a pretty good memory, so I'll try to jam in. I mean, my worst thing is that I tried it, but at least I know it. Is I try to jam in jokes because I love jokes.
Yeah.
And I'm always told, like, why are you giving this person so much real estate? And I go,
because it's funny.
Because it's funny and it's clever. And,
Right.
but that was always my problem. Even, like in acting school, I was always trying to be funny or clever, as I still am.
Yes,
I guess.
you are.
I guess.
Yes, you are.
And have you been watching any of the award shows?
So I
missed them.
I missed the SAG Awards this week. I don't even know if I've
too many
recorded it
award
because
shows.
I've got way too much going on right now.
Yeah.
So I did not see that one, but I saw the Golden Globes, and I'm looking for. I enjoy them. I really do.
Yeah. Well,
I know they're to a certain degree, but
Well, you don't really know. There's always like this. I mean, I vote in the Academy, and it's supposedly top secret. And what's this thing about Price Waterhouse?
Right.
Too?
So I found out that they've unveiled a series of changes for the Academy. So Price Waterhouse is the accounting company who counts the ballots for the Oscars. So they don't want to have anotthe Moonlight La La Land happen. So,
why not? That was so exciting.
It was. Well, they said a third. So let's see. The chairman and senior partner of PricewaterhouseCoopers will be personally involved in the Oscar operations this year.
Bet.
Also,
You bet.
there is going to be a person who will have the complete set of winners' envelopes and commit the winners to memory. So you can't get the wrong,
I love it. What if he got kidnapped? Here, let me pitch a story. No.
Right, exactly. So
Tommy Wiseau,
like you said,
kidnaps
it
him.
was incredibly exciting when that happened, and that's why live events are so cool to watch, right?
Well, here's the thing about the academies, in my humble opinion. First of all, my grandfather won 2 of them. He used to. He had them both in a closet, in a clothing closet. He had all of his awards, although it was a great closet. I wish I had a closet.
Like a big, fabulous walk-in closet kind of
one
thing.
Of these great
dressing room
New York,
sort of deals.
Yeah, and he had a little table, and he had all of his little awards. Of course, as soon as he'd leave, I'd take all the awards and hold them up.
Of course you would.
Practice my
Crazy
speech.
not to, yes.
Practice my speech, which I'm still working on.
Totally. Is that the thing you're working on that you keep revising?
Yes, actually. Yes, it is. I'm trying to do it without crying.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, there's so, it's taken on this importance that, when they put the award in the person's hand, it's like suddenly, it's like they've cured cancer.
Right.
And they start, and in the old days, it used to just be a fun party, a publicity stunt. And I do think that there is a feeling that there's so many award shows by the time the Oscars come into play that it's not quite as fun and glamorous as it used to be, and because the same people seem to keep winning,
right?
It doesn't feel very dramatic. It's like, oh yeah, okay, Frances McDormand won again, which is, you're like, so it's great, it's, but it's the same person. I think the most dramatic thing that may happen this year, drum roll, is what if Meryl Streep does not get nominated?
Oh,
this is the only drama things. I'll be curious about that. That'd be a big upset, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was like a national law in Hollywood.
I think it probably is.
She has to be
nominated.
She has to be nominated.
Oh my goodness. Well, the thing is that sort of piggybacking on what you're saying, there aren't many surprises anymore.
No,
so, we've talked about this before. Everyone shows up on the red carpet dressed by an expert.
Yes.
And let's face it, if I was going to anything like that, I would definitely call in an expert to help. So you don't get to, you get some sense of a person's style, but really it's, they've been manufactured.
Yes,
right?
That's true.
And then there aren't surprises like Moonlight. There aren't surprises like, a lot of things, but maybe.
Well, that's always the big, I know Richard Dreyfuss told me that, that's the hardest thing about winning an Oscars is that how quickly people literally, the shelf life of people remembering that you won an Oscar
is incredibly short.
Is incredibly short. You have a little window, while you have to go for the gusto.
Let's bring in Ed, shall we?
Please, let's do enough of my blather. I hope you like my vest. This is from a movie I did called Search and Destroy.
I love it when
and I looked in the closet and I said, I want to look like a character in a Jerry Lewis movie. Ed is coming in. Okay, Ed, I'm gonna talk about you as opposed to talking about my own career. He has written, I'm going to get to your the line of your bio, which I love, but you've written for the Laverne Shirley Show, Garry Shandling, also such films as the Bill and Ted movies, Super Mario Brothers. Oh, I was in Wilmington, North Carolina when you shot.
I was hardly there. I only worked a few weeks on that movie, and I'm sorry to say.
I talk about that. I talk about that crazy summer in Wilmington.
It was insane, and I wish I know there were a lot of fans of that movie and a lot of not, but I can't take credit because I was like 4th of 7 or 7th of 9 writers or something like that.
That was a crazy experience. I was doing a tiny movie called Household Saints nearby, but there was like 18 movies being shot at the same time at Wilmington, and we were all hanging out. Okay, but I interrupted your credits. Charlie's Angels, was that credited or uncredited?
I was credited, but I can't take credit for that. I know that was a hit because there were a lot of writers after me on that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get to that. I have a question about Bill Murray on that one. Men in Black, of course, Barry Sonnenfeld. And you've teamed up with Steven Soderbergh, which is question number 2 I'm going to get to because I talk about his commentaries all the time. They're literally, it's like crack. It's my favorite thing.
Amazing. And working with him was like getting commentary all the time. But you were going to, so
Mosaic.
Go for it.
Talk more about
Please welcome Ed Solomon. Thank you so much for being here because I know do you live in New York or do you live here?
I moved to New York. I lived here my entire adult life, but I moved there a year and a half ago.
You don't have to tell me what street, but what area, just so I can.
Soho.
Ah, incredible. Beautiful area.
I live off
move in
Spring Street. Yeah, we have another room. You're welcome. So it's a deal, right? Okay, so you're coming. You just let me know when you're going to be there.
I was just talking about
a key for you right now.
Thank you. Oh my God.
Oh, and a quarter to help with the travel. Yeah.
Well, this and a quarter will get you no subway fare. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I was just talking about because my grandfather had an amazing apartment on Riverside Drive.
Yeah.
It was like those. When I dream, I often go back to that apartment. Those halls, and it was just my fantasy of how, as I write about in my book, of just like a life. I'm like, I have got to get this life somehow with like awards. But he kept his awards in the closet.
I was just talking to someone else who's saying the same thing. Like, I think that's the kind of cool way to do it because it's
totally
everyone sees it. It's a humble brag. Let's be honest.
Totally.
Yeah.
Grandpa had a humble brag because he had all of them.
Yeah.
And they were on this little antique table. I took a picture. I have a photo of it. The photo did not make the book, but he had a little sort of an antique table, and everything was there, and he had some pictures and things like that in the closet.
Right. Everyone I know that has them kind of hidden, kind of tucked away.
Yeah.
They also find a way to get you to go into their closet. They're like, hey, if you need a raincoat, I'm like, no, I'm good. But there is one. I got one for you. No, actually, I'm good. Could you mind getting me my raincoat? Oh, sure. Yeah. Just me get it? Okay, sure. And then you open the door. Oh my God, you have an Oscar? I didn't realize that. Oh, it's just a short film. Best short film. Nobody knew. Sorry.
Just a little.
Yeah, it was
a little thing.
Is it in the closet? Yes, it's in your closet. You knew it was in. It's like people who go to Harvard. They make sure that you ask them, where did you go to college?
Yes.
And then, anyway.
Now, did you ever meet Jerry Lewis? Do you know about his Oscar? It was on a platform that revolved.
I believe that.
Totally.
Right. That's the other way to go.
Because he's Jerry Lewis.
Yeah.
It was like he was behind his desk, and it was, of course, lit, and it turned.
My only time I once had a meeting with Sylvester Stallone at, sorry, I just dropped another name. Put that right here. I had a meeting with Sylvester.
This is the place to do it.
Yeah, clearly. it's incredible. We're going crazy with it already, and we haven't even hardly started.
I love it.
First time, I worked with him briefly on this animated thing, and I met with him, Chris Matheson, who I had co-written this movie with, and I met with him at his house. Drive up to his house, and I'm like, oh my God, Sylvester Stallone's house, right?
Heaven.
It's giant house.
Yeah.
We go in, and he says, I'll be right with you. I'll be right with you. And he leads us into a room, and he goes, this is kind of my trophy room, but just hang out here. It's just where I got to do some stuff. He disappears, and we're looking around, and Oscar and photos and awards and, stuff everywhere. It's like about 10 minutes later, he comes back in, he goes, I didn't really have to do anything. I just wanted you to look at all this stuff. Sylvester Stallone. And then the other thing he said, and obviously you see I can't do impressions, I was like, you have a lot of art. And he's like, yeah, I know. And I was like, where did you get it? He goes, seriously, you can shop at the Louvre? And I was like, wait, are you serious? He's like, yeah, you just ask them how much and they'll sell it to you.
Oh
there's
my God.
I guess there's like a basement where.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm in shock, like Filene's basement.
Yeah, for art.
But
it really is
but
that. That's what the Louvre actually is. There's really no difference. It's like a big
That
pile.
is so, okay.
There are bins of Picassos, actually. Just bins.
Oh my God. It's a different world. That's now I'm going to name direct back at you.
Go.
Uh-oh.
When I worked with Nicole Kidman, and she was married to Tom Cruise.
Wow, that's two. You got a twofer there.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Good call. Good call. Touche. And they were renting this house, and we had just gotten there, and we were like, how did you rent a house so quickly? And Tom said the same thing. He goes, oh, you just go up to you just find a house you like, and you go up to it. And
hand them a bag of money.
And now we're renting their house. Yeah. It was like, Jesus.
By the way, if you're Tom Cruise, this is what you can do. You can literally go, I'm getting tired, and I'm nowhere to stay, and just walk up to a house and knock on a door, and they'll open it, and they'll go, do you mind if I crash?
Right.
Yeah.
Cue us looking into the camera quoting F. Scott Fitzgerald, the rich are not like you and I. Okay, now I must ask you, we are meandering around my first question, which is the most important part of the podcast. Do you remember the first movie you saw, and who took you to see it?
Bananas.
Wow.
Oh.
My parents had
cool.
They had a clothing store, a women's clothing store. I'd been dropped off at matinees before then as a little kid who would run around theaters, and I think it was just so my parents could have a break.
Yeah.
But my parents had a clothing store in the early 70s in a mall that had a shopping center, and the first movie that I remember going to, that I remember was a thing as opposed to just some movie,
right,
was Bananas. My dad, and I believe it affected a lot of things because, first of all, me and my dad at the movies. Secondly, my dad laughing. Then it was that guy that made that other movie. He's got another one, and what do you think? Let's go. It was, I guess, Sleeper. I'm trying to remember what was next. Take the Money and Run. I think that was before Bananas, and then it was then it was Sleeper, and then the guy's got another one. And I remember going to Annie Hall, right?
Yeah.
And or Love and Death, and then Annie Hall. And by then I was just hooked on that. Now it's interesting because we were talking about Soho. I don't know, maybe 4 months ago, rainy day morning, I got up to go to work. I stepped out of my apartment and ran into Woody Allen.
Oh my God.
Bumped into him. He was filming right on my street, which is a cobblestone street.
Yeah.
Or brickstone street.
Yeah, like Hannah and her sisters. I'm right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was, dressed as a Woody Allen movie. And it was interesting because, now with everything that has changed, I found myself looking at him. It was just after the Harvey Weinstein stuff had happened. And people were talking about, him and Woody Allen in Not Such a Favorable Light and other people. And that's where my first thought went, was like, I wonder what happens now to him. But it was also interesting because I looked at the movie set that was my street, and I thought about my relationship with him as an artist, as a child, and I thought, isn't it interesting how over the course of a career or a lifetime that you have to revisit these ideas about people and revisit these ideas about your relationship to them. And then I thought, what's the difference? What do I think of him as an artist? What do I think of him as a person? I don't know the guy, so I can't really speak to, except for the things I've read, but anyway, it was a Woody Allen movie.
It's an interesting, just as a sidebar, it's such an interesting, I was having a conversation last night with a very famous female comedian, a little bit older.
So now you decide not to name drop.
Yes.
Okay. Because we're going to see where this is going.
It's a personal story, eh?
Okay.
Right. It was Paula Poundstone.
There you go.
Okay.
And we were saying, she's a little older, and we were talking again about the current climate. And I said, as a writer and as a funny person, most of the horrible, tragic stuff that has happened to me has become funny anecdotes.
Right.
And so some of this discussion is that if everything is fixed for you, therefore, what, as a writer, again, what well do you have to draw from if everything is very black and very white? If sometimes terrible things you can keep them private and process them into art or into something that is a work of art or a script or something like that. Do you think about that at all?
What do you mean by fixed for you?
I mean fixed for you, like that we're now gonna have these, like, something bad happens to you and you call it out immediately.
Right.
But
even the act of calling it out is an emotional thing. I don't think we're ever going to be short of painful emotional experiences from which to draw art out of ourselves. I think if you're connected to the world in any way and to the people in your life and to the world around you, you are always, congratulations, you're all good news. You're always going to have pain. You're always going to have stuff that's going to make you mad. You're always going to have sadness. You're always going to have disappointment. You're always going to be able to find something deep to point to then make hay out of. So I think it's a way of living, to no matter how, to take anything. And so I don't see any downside to being able to put anything out in the open. I don't think that stuff goes away. I think, and by the way, if you've had pain, it doesn't mean you have to have pain your whole life to be an artist. If you have had pain and have empathy for others who have pain, that's a way into it. It's when you haven't experienced or are unable or unwilling to experience in others that I don't think you can make anything of resonance.
Yeah, it's just an interesting, with the kids, it's obviously huge, bigger discussion of just, it started when everybody had to win awards on the baseball team, and you know what I mean? These little things that creep in, and I don't know. There is a certain, I look back on my childhood of, alcoholic teachers and everything.
Oh my God.
I kind of miss. I mean, I sort of feel sorry for the kids, like that they don't have much chaos with which to draw humor from. That's the sort of point I guess I'm making.
I think there's just
But you're saying there's
new
plenty-
evolved
there's-
chaos. I
they're
think
saying
that
there's
everyone-
horrible.
Oh yeah.
There's
I think I remember when I was 7, there was a guy who used to drive around in a big yellow Cadillac without pants. And he would try to call the kids to the car to get, hey kids, hey look. And the whole neighborhood rallied together to protect the kids by telling them, don't go near the guy with the car.
Right.
That was it.
Right,
that was
right.
the only repercussions that guy ever had, which was don't go. It was never let's
Right.
call the police on the guy with the car. It was
Right.
just stay away from the guy with the car. Things
Yes.
change. You get
Yes.
more aware.
Yeah, there
you
was
know?
a subtle. Yes, I understand. I had an experience like that because when I grew up near the drive-in, and there was the classic, the guy with the candy.
Oh yeah.
I almost fell for it. It was candy,
Yeah.
after all.
I had a favorite teacher of mine say he'd give me a better grade if I let him put his hand down my pants. I mean, and I just was like, oh, that's so and so, like.
Yeah.
I've had we could get super personal, but like, I can really feel for people that have had events occur to them when they were powerless, especially when they're sexual in nature.
Right.
And I've had that happen to me too as a child. And I actually said Me Too. I didn't mean to say it as the Me Too thing.
Yes.
But I have had that happen to me. And can I swear on here?
Yes.
Yeah,
It
please.
fucks you up.
Yeah.
It fucks you up. It fucks up your relationship with your sexuality. It fucks up your relationship with your body. It fucks up your relationship with your partner. It's fucked up relationships I've had with women who remind me of the people that were involved that happened to me through, so to
Right.
speak. It can mess you up. And it takes a lot of work to untangle that. And so I think there isn't a downside to it coming forward more now. I think, and I base that on the fact that I believe we'll always have pain in life to draw on as an artist, and you don't need that one.
Right.
In fact, sometimes those are the ones you can't really untangle. Those are the ones that are too complex. Those are the ones that you're just trying to deal with on a personal level to survive your life.
Right.
Some people can draw and make art out of it, but sometimes that just informs and infuses the personality of the person and then gives them a different, interesting lens through which they view life. And that allows them to see and feel other people's pain,
Yeah.
which allows them to have more empathy and connect with people more as an artist.
Well, it's definitely interesting in terms of, we've been talking to writers all month, and so how processing this and the future and our president and how I'm just always curious how, again, it will affect humor, storytelling, what is funny, what is not fun, what is satire? Is there no such thing as satire anymore?
Satire has definitely taken a turn. Satire and reality have
Dr. Strangelove is that a satire now, or is it
I
a
know.
documentary?
It's amazing to watch. It's just amazing because satire has changed. It's
Right.
almost. I don't work. Obviously, I don't work on Saturday Night Live, but I happen to have a passing acquaintance with one of the writers of the show, and I was like, I have an idea for a sketch for SNL, and you guys might have done something like this. I don't know. And here's the idea. Verbatim. Do this scene. There was something that happened politically. Do this scene with Donald Trump and Kellyanne Conway, and it was a few other people. I said, do it verbatim, seriously. I think that's the only place to go now, satirically. Just do it and don't try to go for laughs, because it's so bizarre what was said.
Interesting.
And I
Yeah.
thought, okay, that's where satire is going. Like, the world is so it's so crazy. And when you're in America and you don't leave America very often, you don't see what the rest of the world sees about America now.
Oh, God. I can't even.
I know, we should probably. Now it's like abuse, and now we're getting depressed when we talk about.
Which
yeah.
leads me to my next question, because it's always so sad sometimes when I think like the great funny minds, and I really miss what they would have been saying.
Yeah.
So I talk a little bit about your relationship with Garry Shandling. I worked with Garry later on in the Larry Sanders Show. Had a profound influence on my life. I found out when he passed away, apparently this is what he did with everybody. There were so many people he gave advice to, or But you were involved in his first show. It's Garry Shandling.
I used to write jokes for Garry.
Before you? No, not
before.
Oh my
when
God.
I was in college. I met Garry when I was 19. I was a budding college comedian doing stand-up. And in fact, Judd Apatow made a documentary about Garry that is beautiful. I think it's a really beautiful piece of work. And there's a brief moment where Garry comes on stage and you can see me introduce him and walk away. He came to me after my set and he said, I have a lot of thoughts about your set. Are you interested in writing? You could be a writer. Would you be interested in writing with me? And I said, yeah. And he goes, okay, watch me work and see what you think. So I watched him do a stand-up, and that began a relationship that changed my life. So it was more than me just working on his show. Garry was the guy who said to me, you can be a writer. He looked at my stand-up set, and he said, and I had done like way too long that night. I'd done 20 minutes. And it was a good set, I thought. It was like I stayed on stage longer than I should have because I was getting laughs. And he said, let's get rid of almost all those jokes and let's look at these 2 jokes. And now let's optimize. Let's pull those out and see why do those jokes work, and now put those together and get more of those. And he goes, you know, he was talking about George Carlin in this first night after this show. And the irony is I was talking with Kelly Carlin today, funnily enough, about her dad, George. It's just so interesting. When Garry was starting out, he didn't know anyone in the comedy world. And he drove from Tucson, where he lived, to Phoenix to see George perform. And he went backstage afterwards and he said, I want to write stand-up. I want to be you. I want to, you know, I write jokes. Could you look at my stuff? And he left a bunch of his notes for George and came back the next day, drove back down and drove back up. And George gave him all this feedback on his stuff. And in my first meeting with Garry, Garry talked about that meeting with George. Garry said to me, I want you to meet a friend of mine. This was after I'd been writing jokes with Garry for a couple of years, for Garry. I want you to meet a friend of mine. He produces television. I happened to have a play that I had written being performed at UCLA at the time. And this producer came to that play that Garry introduced me to, and he hired me on Laverne Shirley when I was a senior in college, and suddenly I was a writer, like a professional writer, and I owe that to Garry. So then Garry had this show, it's Garry Shandling Show.
Yeah.
He said, I'm doing the show, you want to work on it? And I was like, yeah. And that was so much fun working on that show. Garry was the epitome of the guy with the unresolved life who makes other people's lives better. Now, he also was a troubled, messed up guy, self-involved, romantically challenged, struggling, but he would go out of his way to help you, to as long as it didn't require committing to anything. Like he couldn't commit to a thing. He couldn't even commit to, at one time we were having a conversation where he was saying, am I like, do I have trouble committing? He was saying to me, I do, don't I? Well, actually, no, I don't think I do, because, and I'm like, Garry, you can't even commit to whether you commit or not. And he's like, that's very funny. Or I'm laughing really hard at that. Like he would say without smiling.
Yes, I remember those stares. I was when I pitched jokes.
this one.
Yes, the nod.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just keep going.
So Garry was amazing for me, like an incredible, and I didn't see him much the last 10 years. Saw him a few times. The last time I saw him, go ahead.
He got involved with him boxing. That was like the odd left turn.
I think it did several things for him. I think, he really, and he would talk about it and do the head jab bob thing, and I think it gave him, it helped him connect. It was physical. It brought him out of his head. It made him, I think it made him feel alive and connected, and he seemed to be less and less connected in the last part of the last 5-8 years. You know? And the last time I saw him, the very last time I saw him was at a restaurant in Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm.
It was about 3 months before he died, maybe 4 months before he died. And we had from the very first writing session I ever had with him when I was 19 years old, a joke that we co-wrote. The cow joke, we call it. And I came up with the first part of it, and he actually really made it funny. And the premise was, and this was my pitch, have you ever noticed when someone's driving a car and they drive by a cow they see on the side of the road, they stick their head out the window and they go, moo, like the cow's thinking, hey, there's a cow driving that car. And then Garry built it out to, you know, and he's driving a Mercedes, I'm out here eating grass. And he built it out, and it got, the best laughs were actually Gary's adds to it.
Yeah.
But I was 19. From then until the last time I saw him, I mean, basically for every 6 months would be this fake argument about who wrote the cow joke. Was it him or me? He did it on The Tonight Show.
Oh, I remember the joke very well.
Okay,
yeah.
so when I, last time I saw him, I was in this restaurant writing, and I noticed Garry sit down with his boxing teacher, interestingly, and someone else from the gym. Interesting, right?
Yes.
And I noticed Gary's over there, and Garry doesn't see me because his back's to me. So I get the waiter and I say, hey, do me a favor.
Oh my God.
Go up to that guy there and say, excuse me, sir, I'm a big fan of the first half of the cow joke. And so I'm watching, right? And the waiter, God bless him, because like 2/3 of all waiters in LA are pretty much actors as well.
Yeah.
I see him walk up. I see him bend over. Imagine like two people's backs to me, right?
Yeah.
I see him whisper. I see Garry laugh and turn in his chair like this. And he comes over and we talk. And this is sad because I hadn't seen him in about at all in like 2 years. And we talked for a while. It was actually really nice. Then he goes back to be with the people he's at lunch with. And I hear him as he's sitting saying, it's one of my oldest, dearest friends in the world. And what was so sad was we hadn't even really connected in 10 years, like in any way at all. And I thought that's where he is. He's in a, when you're, how do I put it? It's hard living as a funny person like that. I you know, I don't have that. I'm not a public person. You know, it's hard when you go in the world and people believe they know you, and the cues you get from human beings in life are different than the cues you get. Like when I go into the world, I have to dole out certain cues. If I want to be treated nicely, I have to act nicely. If I want to be treated with respect, I have to act with respect. But when you're getting that well known, especially in the world of comedy, and it's funny because one of the things Carlin and I were talking about was this in relation to her dad and other people who are especially known for being funny, because making someone laugh hits them at a level that is deep and personal, that you know, they feel a different relationship to you. And so when you're well known and you go out in the world itself actually colludes to give you really crossed mixed signals about what it means to be a human being. It's not even your fault. The world treats you differently, and it changes you. I think on a DNA, I'm not obviously by what I'm saying, clearly not a scientist, but it changes your DNA, I think.
I'm sure it does.
It changes the way you're wired. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. No,
Anyway.
I'm sure it does. God, thanks so much for, I mean, because I'm fascinated, having worked with him and spent some time with him, a fascinating individual. And I'm always fascinated by people that all of a sudden sort of start to isolate and you don't really know why. They had, you know, and then they always have a sort of a posse around them, and that also keeps them somewhat away from people. And so then you start to feel, as too much time goes by, same thing. I was like, I should reach out to him, and but people sort of make it seem like, oh, he's busy and he won't be, you know.
Well, it's a one-way. It can be a one-way relationship.
Yeah.
Sometimes. The last time it was funny because one time I was flying, landed, noticed on my phone when I turned it on again, there were 6 messages from Garry, and I was like, oh my God, what happened? And he's like, I listened to the last one. He's like, call me when you can. It's really important. I call him. He's like, I'm in trouble. And I'm like, oh my God, what do you need? And I was like in the cab, right? And he goes, he goes, it was a Friday night. He goes, I'm doing Leno on Thursday. And by the way, I was 49 years old at the time. This I remember, because I remember thinking, wow, I haven't written jokes for him since I was 19 or 20, right?
Yeah.
He goes, I'm doing Leno on Thursday and I don't have a set. I haven't been doing stand-up. And I was like, oh, that's the okay. And he said, I gotta do a gig tonight at Comedy Magic Club. Can you come down with me? And I said, well, actually, yeah, I can.
Yeah.
So I go to his house. He's got all these jokes. He's reading them out. We get in the car. We get down to the Comedy Magic Club. I'm 49 years old. When I was 19, I used to go down to the Comedy Magic Club with Garry with a notebook, and I would stand in the back in a certain spot. He would do a set, and I would take notes. And sometimes I would, like, if I had an idea, I'd punch it up, or I'd whatever notes you took,
Yeah.
you know, as like a friend and confidant and writer. I'm 49. I have 2 kids. I'm now divorced. My hair is this color. I take this notebook. I stand at the back of the Comedy Magic Club in the same exact spot. Garry does a set. I take notes. And for me, this is gigantic and weird, because to me, it's like 30 years have passed, and I'm back in a moment that has an entirely different meaning to me. Garry gets off stage, we talk, and I realize Gary's in the same moment. Like for Garry, it was, well, I used to call on Ed for this. I'm calling on Ed for this. Now he has a ton of writers, way better comedy writers than me, much funnier writers than I am, much, you know, but for whatever reason he went to that moment, and it was never a discussion from him about, isn't this weird?
Yeah.
All I was thinking is, isn't this weird? And this is amazing. And oh my God, I'm living this life, this moment, like it was a week or two since the last moment, but it's 30 years since that last moment. But he's living it actually like it's a week or two away. It was so odd.
We've established these relationships.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
But he went to that, like
Yeah.
that synapse went. And so that I think, and by the way, there are other parts where, you know, you would give Garry a script, he would read it and give you notes. You would, you know, the other thing that was incredible about Garry was he was really genuinely happy for your success. He was genuinely happy if you did something he wanted to do, even if he couldn't get it done. He would then think, I got to do that. I got to figure out how to do that. But he was always happy for you as a friend, which was an incredibly generous thing to do. Took deep pride in other people's doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, now I miss him even more. All right.
I miss him a lot. I think about him a lot.
Oh
actually.
my God, I think about him all the time, and I don't want to. I could spend an hour just talking about just the weird insights, and he could be mercurial and interesting and
frustrating,
and
menacing, and hard to work with, and harder with women, to be honest. Women writers. I only found out recently one of the women writers on its Garry Shandling show had a very harrowing on-set experience. I hadn't been there for, but I didn't even know about.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I felt
she
like
wrote
every
about
day with him was. But then he'd turn around and be like, give me a clock. You know, it was like that kind of, again, this Jerry Lewis type, like,
Yeah.
you know, gave me a clock, like yelled at me and then turned around and gave me a beautiful clock and said, you're my favorite, you know. It was so, who
yeah.
knows? But all reasons I got into show business. For these great stories. Okay, so let's talk about now. What was your you were writing jokes, but then how did it move into screenwriting?
I wanted to be a writer always. I got this job on the TV show because I had been writing jokes and that kind of thing. I had a really tough time on my first job on Laverne Shirley. It was really hard. I was young. I was probably too young to go from being funny with my college friends, and I was working a bit as a stand-up and as a joke writer. I was actually paying for school by selling jokes and stuff. But going from that to professionally funny in a room of professionally funny people with the schedule that especially Laverne and Shirley was on was very intimidating. There was a thing called nap time on the show where the producer announced that every day from 3 to 3:30 we're turning the phones off. Everyone's going to take a nap because we have to work really hard this season because we have a compressed schedule. We're doing 22 shows in 23 weeks. I would lie in my office at nap time trying to nap, unable to sleep, and then I'd come back from nap time and everyone had all their energy, and I was like, I just lay there thinking I'm going to be fired any moment. So I was a wreck and they were all perfectly energetic. About 20 years later, I had lunch with one of the people I worked with on the show, and I was talking about meditation because that has become, and had for the last couple of decades for me, been a saving grace for me. Helped me through all sorts. My divorce, helped me through professional situations. And, I said, man, I wish I meditated during nap time because that would have been the perfect time to meditate. And he's like, nap time? I was like, yeah, don't you remember when they told us it was nap time from 3 to 3:30 and like everyone was sleeping and you guys always had all the energy and because you napped, and I came back and I had no energy. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, nap time, 3 to 3:30. He goes, no one was napping. We were doing coke. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? I was lying in my office trying to nap, and that's why you had all the energy. And that's funny because then on Garry Shandling's show, we used to have this little hour break between the run through and then the late night table read. And I lived very close to the studio. So I used to go home, run around Silver Lake, shower, and then buzz back. And I'd come back all ruddy and red-faced and full of energy. And I found out later that a couple of the people on the show thought I was going away doing coke.
Of course.
That's so funny. Anyway, so how did I get into it? So that was a really hard experience.
Right.
And it knocked me on my ass. And I thought, I don't know if I can do this. I thought at 22 years old, legitimately thought that could have been it. Mm-hmm. Like a flash in the pan. That was it. Whoosh, whoosh. And I struggled for like a year and a half. Couldn't get a TV thing, couldn't get a TV job. Made money selling jokes again, did some stand-up and stuff like that. Supported myself kind of piecemeal, but was really living on my $13,000 that I had saved from Laverne Shirley. Not a lot, but at the time I had roommates, and $20 a week was all I needed for food. A lot of toasty dogs and pop ramen. And I my friends and I were doing an improv group, not in front of an audience. We rented a theater only to push ourselves and to work out. And once a week, we would just try to make each other laugh and make ourselves laugh. And in the middle of it, we came up with these characters, Bill and Ted, but just random, like a random in the middle of the thing. Mm. And Chris Matheson, with my Bill, who I co-wrote Bill and Ted with, he and I just loved doing the characters, and we started doing them back and forth for like a year. And then we decided to try and write a script. And by then, I was at the very end of my, let's say, infatuation period with my agents. I should say they were running out of infatuation with me is the point. And they read the script and didn't like it and weren't going to send it out. And I made this impassioned plea. I went in with Chris. Chris drove me in, waited down in the parking lot. I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk him into sending the script out. And I go in, I get this meeting with all the agents, and I believe in this, and it really makes me laugh, and I want you guys to. And long story short, I left without agents. They fired me. They were like, we hear you, you're fired. And now I walk out, he's like, how'd it go? We don't have an agent. But another agent that I had met when I first got the Laverne Shirley job, who had stayed in touch with me, I showed it to him, and he was like, I like this script. And the script ended up taking off in a way that just ignited my future career. And that's how it happened. His name was David Greenblatt. And what's interesting to me is how they talk about the business of relationships and all that. The actual relationship part of it was when I got my Laverne Shirley job, I didn't know the first thing about who to sign with as an agent, but I was already employed. So I'm a 21-year-old kid on a TV show. So I didn't realize just how appealing that is to an agent because A, they don't have to get me work. I'm working.
Right.
And, there's a lot of potential and hope in something like that. So I'd heard of an agent, a big fancy agent, and I just called them. I heard him because he spoke at a friend's screenwriting class. Wrong fit. I'd met this young agent who really believed in me, but I was like, I'm going with the fancy guy. Fancy thing didn't work out, but I stayed in touch with the young guy, and it was his belief in Bill and Ted that then got us started, you know. And so that was way back then, and now, you know, here we are now.
Did you like, I mean, it did, you know, it did take off. Do you have fun memories of working with Keanu Reeves? I always thought he was so funny. I wish he'd do more comedy.
He was lovely. I was, we've been actually working with Keanu and Alex, who are Ted and Bill.
Yeah.
And Chris Matheson and me, and Dean Pariseau, who directed Galaxy Quest, and actually Steven Soderbergh, who directed Mosaic.
Love Galaxy Quest.
Love Galaxy Quest. Steven's producing, along with Scott Kroof, the original producer, on a third Bill and Ted movie that we still haven't gotten the financing for, but we have been working for 10 years trying to get it made.
I would love it.
Bill and Ted has middle-aged men, and
I mean,
so yes,
Can I be in it?
Sure.
I'll be a saucy ex-wife or something. Anyway, okay, we're gonna run out of time. Let's talk about Men in Black.
Yeah, you bet.
Working with Barry Sonnenfeld.
Really a funny guy at the top of his game. I think one of the reasons that Men in Black worked, and I've had a lot of things that haven't worked. Sometimes, some of it my fault, sometimes not my fault. But you know, it's just the vicissitudes of things. But one of the things that I'm so grateful about Men in Black is you have all these people working at the top of their game, like Barry, and bringing like incredible crew in, and Will and Tommy and Vincent D'Onofrio, and like people, Linda Fiorentino, and like just really gifted people. I love Garry. Barry made me laugh so much. He was really funny. He used to give me the weirdest. I remember his notes. He would give me notes, not detailed, but either more words, less words, or DB, which meant do better. Those were his notes. Literally, more words, less words, DB. Nothing else. So
when someone gives you a note, do better. What is that?
Yeah, I know.
How do you process that? Or do you know? Does a writer always know?
You sort of know. And honestly,
get to it sooner. Or,
yeah.
I don't
know.
Actually,
those notes are actually good.
Yeah.
My favorite notes. Well, first of all, actors give the best notes, without a doubt. An actor who says, what am I doing here? Like, why am I saying this? That is always correct. When an actor has trouble memorizing a scene, it's always a writing problem. And
you're right.
It's because something's not connecting at a deep level.
True.
When stuff's connecting at a deep level, it's really easy to memorize. So that's another one. The other notes that are really good for me are inarticulate mumblings from people that are honest. Like, what'd you think? I don't know. I don't know. Like, it got here, it just was like, what? Or I was bored, or here, or I don't know. It's just like, it's okay. Those are way better than like writers who give you notes, like, which are usually how they would do it instead. People who try to solve your problems don't help you. People who assess where there is a problem really help you.
Yes. Oh my God. Everything you just said, hallelujah. I totally agree with. Okay. The reboot of Charlie's Angels. I mean, you said...
I can't take responsibility. Are they rebooting Charlie's Angels? Oh, you mean are talking the one I was involved with?
Yeah, the one you were
They're
involved
rebooting
with.
it again, I think, too, which is weird. I can't
really?
take too much credit for it. I wrote a draft that I really liked, but I was the first writer, and for whatever reason, they got rid of it, pretty much all of it. And I think I only got credit because I was the first writer, and
that's
so
the
many other
part,
people had
right?
worked on it. But honestly, John August and Ryan Rowe, to a degree, but mostly John August, deserves the credit for making it the movie, the successful movie it was. I can't take the credit for that.
Did you know that Bill Murray was going to be involved?
No, and I had forgotten. I'm glad you brought it up because
he's sort of known to like to bring in his own writers.
I was so long gone by then.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
That's why the experience with Soderbergh on Mosaic was so incredible, coming out of the screenwriting mill into a scenario where your mandate is, let's break new ground. Let's be as creative as we can be. Let's be as diligent as we can be. Let's work as hard as we can, but let's create the safe space in which to do it. And go do your thing and do it as deep as you can do it. And you go.
Yeah.
That was an amazing experience.
So let's talk about Steven Soderbergh. As I said at the top, do you listen ever to his commentaries that he does on films?
I haven't listened to the commentaries, but I have spent night after night after night listening to him talk about movies and going,
you don't need the damn DVDs.
I go, this is amazing. Oh my God. I'm having the most amazing experience listening to the way this guy articulates these thoughts. And so not only does he have thoughts at a different level than people have, he articulates them in a way that is clear and simple to understand. But he's also, beyond that, just on set and in the creative experience, just calm and confident and trusting, and it just makes you bring your A game. Doesn't try to micromanage. The least controlling director I've ever worked with, the most in control at the same time. The most and that confidence is what lets him let you do your thing, which is why we've all worked with directors who are lacking in confidence, and sometimes the manifestation of it, as I'm sure you know, is micromanage, there's a sort of almost neurotic desire to, it's not just that they're conducting the orchestra, they're trying to play every instrument, and you know.
What, does it make you, have you ever wanted to direct yourself?
I've directed a few times, not a lot, and as I have other, right now I'm not directing for another probably a year because of just family situation and child, having kids and that kind of thing. But I like it. It's fun. I like doing it, and I look forward to doing it more. But I also really love working with directors that bring out better work in me, and so, you know, I like it both.
And what is Mosaic about?
Mosaic's it's a mystery, a crime mystery, and it's told in two entirely different ways at the same time. Meaning, you can watch it on your phone or computer or iPad as an app which you download for free, and the story begins, and then you're given a choice between one character and another. You can pick a point of view. So the app version is a very subjective telling of the same story. In other words, you're choosing which perspective through which to view it. So that's the app version. There's a linear version or a broadcast version that is going to be on HBO actually tonight. Starting tonight, it's on for 5 nights. So starting, I don't know when this airs, but
it's going to air next week.
Okay, so it will have been on last week.
Okay,
but it'll still be on, and you can get it. It's 6 episodes aired 5 nights in a row last week, and that is a more traditional telling, meaning it's Stephen's cut, and it's the same event but told in a very different way. So there are literally 2 different ways to view it: subjective on an app, for lack of a better word, objective. Sit back on your couch and let HBO.
Any preferences to which you should watch first, TV and then the app?
Oh, good question.
I get that. I've gotten that a lot, actually. That question. So my experiences with people who've seen the app first, because the app came out already,
right,
and then watch the show, and so I'm used to that. But I think, first of all, it's either or first, meaning don't start one and go to the other and then go back, because they're structured entirely differently.
Yeah.
So they're not meant to be cross-connected in that way. I think if you were having trouble figuring out which to do, watch the broadcast version, because the app is all about making choices. And so if you're having a choice about which to watch, you'll probably be more anxious about, I should go that way or that way.
Yes.
So, and anyway, the broadcast version is now out. So I'd say that for me, it's newer. So yeah, watch that.
All right. Okay, I'll do it. Well, unfortunately, because I know we're all on a tight schedule here. Yeah. I'm so. We're gonna wrap up. But will you promise? My last question: will you come back?
I'd love to come back.
Continue to talk, because I want to talk about Invisible Man, and I love that. That's a great film. The original, so special effects involved in remaking it. That ought to be really interesting too. So please come back.
I would love to come back.
Already. Thank you, Ed. Thanks
Sure
so
thing.
much.
So look for Ed's show Mosaic on HBO and on the app. You can find him on Twitter at
Ed_Solomon, and his website is edsolomonofficial.com. Thank you, Ed. And you can find Illeana's book, I Blame Dennis Hopper, on Amazon and in bookstores.
That's right.
Find us on Facebook. Find us on Twitter. The website for the show is illeanaspodcast.com.
That's right. And as we end the show, I like to say everyone's life is like a movie. Yours is bananas. Everyone's life is like a movie with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And this is the end of our podcast. But you are going to come back for part 2 because it's been way too much fun. Thank you so much, Ed. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
I know that.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.